Hey all, Glenn Kirschner here. Please enjoy this video on the Political Voices Network.
Good morning, Steph.
I told you that the picture of you and Frank Figliuzzi in Nashville is more than any mortal woman can withstand. And it was unfortunate timing that I am completely straight to begin Gay Pride Month. But anyway, hello.
How are you?
Just fine. So, what more can be said about Judge Cannon? You heard what we just played. I mean, there's just the headlines, not normal at all. Analysts bury Eileen Cannon's latest maneuver. This one, Judge Cannon is uniquely prone to being exploited. Lawyers who have appeared before her say, a bunch of anonymous lawyers have talked about. It's hard to say how much is incompetence and how much is corruption, or if it's equal parts. Glenn, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when do we reach critical mass, and when does Jack Smith file a motion to get the ball rolling on, litigating the issue of whether her impartiality might reasonably be questioned, which is the federal standard requiring that she remove herself from the case. Steph, what I hope we never have to suffer is looking in our rearview mirror with Judge Cannon having dismissed the case mid-trial with prejudice so that it can't be appealed, which it feels like she's trying to set up. We're all going to be saying, why in the world wasn't there litigation over whether she should be disqualified from the case? Because she should. I'm not saying it's 100% of a winning motion, but I am saying you have to litigate the motion if we are ever to have any confidence in the outcome of the case.
So, once again, just us lay people go, can she do that? Just dismiss the entire case, which, as every legal analyst has said, is so strong. It's documents, right? I mean, the stuff is on tape. How does that happen? How does it happen that she's able to dismiss it? On what grounds?
She can basically direct a verdict of not guilty after the government presents all of its evidence and the government rests its case, and then it shifts over to the defense to present a case if they choose to. A defendant never has to present any evidence. There is what's called a motion for a judgment of acquittal in that little in-between time. And that is an opportunity for a judge to say, you know what? I don't think the prosecutors presented enough evidence to convince reasonable jurors beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. So I am hereby granting the motion for a judgment of acquittal and dismissing the case. And you can't appeal that. So she could orchestrate a nefarious dismissal of these charges. And as you say, she's clearly incompetent. Yeah. She might also be compromised. It feels like a combination of those two things. And the only way to kind of get at the nub of it is to litigate the issue.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's terrifying. Tedious, indecisive, overwhelmed by the process are just some of the ways attorneys who've appeared before her describe her. They pointed to her isolation in Fort Pierce. She has little practical courtroom experience before Trump handed her a lifetime appointment. I mean, but then the Supreme Court, let's talk about that. That seems deliberate and corrupt. That there's still no ruling this week on immunity. What do you think is happening there? It seems so obvious they're deliberately delaying for him.
Yeah, so this is corruption on the part of Justice Alito and Justice Thomas. And interestingly, that language I just quoted from the federal law, the federal law says if a Supreme Court justice or a federal judge or a federal magistrate judge, which is one tick below a regular federal court judge, if their impartiality might reasonably be questioned, they must disqualify themselves. And so I maintain that both Justice Alito and Justice Thomas are in violation of that federal law requiring them to remove themselves from the J6 cases. Of course, they won't. And I guess it's good to be the Supreme Court because there's nobody over the top of them, and they're not amenable to policing themselves with any code of ethics that are mandatory. So we are in deep, deep trouble. But you know what? That's why we have impeachment inquiries.
Yeah.
These matters have to be investigated. We can't just continue to turn a blind eye and hope things are going to get better. I understand the challenges with the House remaining in Republican control, at least until November, but you have to have impeachment inquiries to investigate this misconduct by Supreme Court justices.
Many people have commented that you may, in fact, be spending too much time with sexy liberals because you are doing, we call you Glenn Shecky Kirschner now. You do a number of skits. You tweeted, does it qualify as irony that Justice Samuel Alito doesn't seem to have autonomy over his own flagpole? Glenn Kirschner, I see you. That is a D joke.
Wait.
You did give a shout out to John Fugelsang.
Thank you. Thank you. Please, I stole that from Fugelsang, and I always try to give attribution.
Excuse me. I mean, but you did as a skit last Friday, Trump giving his acceptance speech through prison glass.
Yep.
And what on cue last week? The head of the RNC, the story came out, is planning, just in case, that he gives his speech from prison to accept the nomination. I can't even believe where we are, Glenn, in this country.
Hey all, Glenn Kirschner here. I hope you'll join me on my new audio podcast, Justice Matters. I'll be using my 30 years as a federal prosecutor and Army JAG to unpack, break down, and explain the legal issues of the day, particularly where the legal intersects with the political. Please look for Justice Matters with Glenn Kirschner wherever you generally get your podcasts.